What's going on, everyone? It's another episode of the WVSports.com podcast. Mountaineers are on the road this week, and we are going to talk to you about the first ever matchup between West Virginia and Arizona, as well as men's basketball having their first exhibition of the season. So I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by, obviously, the one and only Keenan Cummings. And so, Keenan, this is a beat-up football team in West Virginia heading all the way across the country to face an Arizona team that is struggling themselves to kind of find their mark in this new league that they are in. So let's start with injuries, I would say, right? I think the big one is Garrett Green. He's up in the air as far as his availability. And then you've got Wyatt Milam and then Jaheim White on offense. And then on defense, Aubrey Burks, he'll be out. So a lot of big name guys here that will not be on the field or could not be on the field this weekend against Arizona.
Yeah, it's crazy how we were going from when West Virginia was coming out of the bye week, talking about how healthy this team was, and things were moving in the right direction. And this is why you have bye weeks. This is a beat-up football team. Kansas State, Iowa State, two very physical football games. We didn't even mention Jaden Bray, who hasn't played the last few games, and they got a lot of key injuries here. Obviously, Nico Markiel has played before. He's fared pretty well when called upon. I think that if he does get the start, he can handle himself. You want to play your starter. The thing I kind of don't understand right now in West Virginia land is everybody's need to push Garrett out the door because, truthfully, he's really kind of been their best option offensively the last few weeks with what he's been able to do with his legs. But, Nico's played well, and I think that outside of, the Kansas State game, but truthfully, I don't think anybody except Garrett running the ball played well. So, he has fared pretty well in these situations before. So if he does get the call, I think that they can call the game in a way that is similar to how they'll call it with Garrett. They didn't miss a beat when he came in against Oklahoma State. I think he's going to need to throw the football a little bit more. Arizona is not the stoutest run defense, but they're also not as bad as Oklahoma State. So if he does get the call, I think that he's going to have to make some plays with his arms. They can run some RPO stuff. That's what he's really good at. Most of his big throws this year has come off those type of concepts. So they feel comfortable with him doing that. If they lose Wyatt, that's a big loss, but I've really liked the play of Johnny Williams when he's got in there. I asked Neil about him this week. He's young and, he's not Wyatt Milam, obviously, at this point, but he's fared pretty well. I think that he has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see how he's going to continue to grow in this program because where he is now compared to where he was last year is light years, and that's what you want to see out of young linemen. They think Jaheim's going to play. We should get an update on all of these injuries tonight on Neil Brown's radio show, I would imagine. But at this point, it kind of is what it is. Defensively, this is a beat-up team. Aubrey Burks has basically left almost every game he's played this season. Kiki Tarnu filled in for him last week. He played okay, but, you'd like to have your best players out there. So it's been a struggle. They should get Aiden Garnes back at least at cornerback, which was kind of a surprising injury. That one wasn't talked about, and he was out against Kansas State. Dantes Fagan played pretty well in his absence, but, again, you want your starters out there. They're starters for a reason. And, I know you can catch lightning in a bottle sometimes, but these coaches watch these guys practice every day and make these decisions. So, beat up football team, and it's a concern, but on the plus side, I guess if you want to call it plus side for West Virginia, Arizona's dealing with a lot of the same things. They're a beat up football team. They've got injuries all over their defense, so it's going to be a game of really it comes down to which one of these teams wants it more. They're both 3-4, both disappointing. Arizona, everybody's talking about West Virginia. Obviously, this is a West Virginia centered podcast, but Arizona started the season in the preseason top 25, and they're 3-4. So both these teams are really fighting to stay alive at this point. You lose this game, drop to 3-5. If West Virginia loses this game, drop to 3-5. That's going to be a long bye week for everybody involved.
It'll be a long bye week and an even longer flight back from Arizona. But yeah, Nico, he was dealing with an injury of his own last week. He was limited in practice, but he obviously played the second half. And so if he is called upon, he's going to have to play well. But luckily, if you're a West Virginia fan, Nico has played really well when he's been a starter. It's, I think, he's like 2-3-0, something like that when he's been a starter. So there's that going for him, and also he's experienced. I think you saw a much different Nico Markule in that Oklahoma State game than you did last year. But I also think that him kind of being thrown into the fire there against Kansas State just didn't do him or that team any good. But as you said, Keno, when even with Garrett in the game, they weren't doing much in the passing game at all. So I think this Arizona team's beatable. I really do. But
I do too.
I just think that defensively, the same issues that popped up, they might be exploited and then some against this Arizona passing attack, because we're going to get to it. But that offense, especially that wide receiver, is legit.
Yeah, and I think the most frustrating thing about last week for West Virginia is it wasn't necessarily their cornerbacks getting beat. It was, again, Kansas State just was picking them apart in their drops. Throwing the ball right behind the linebackers when they drop, and then the guy would cut upfield 8 or 9 yards, get 17, 18 yards on a pass play, all easy access throws for Avery Johnson. I think that, Neil talked about this in his press conference. They were surprised. That's kind of how they attacked him. They thought it would be, on the outside, taking shot plays. They really only had one shot play, and that was matched up against a safety in quarters coverage. But they really just made everything easy on him. And if you make everything easy this week, it's going to be a long day at the office.
Yeah, low stress throws didn't really get much in Avery Johnson's face. He was getting the ball out quick, on time, and it just looked very easy for him in that Kansas State offense. But let's get to Arizona a little bit. As you said, Keenan, 3-4, 1-3 in Big 12 play. They've lost 3 straight, and all 3 have been in league play, and they've lost 4 out of their last 5. So they're a team that is desperate for a win. Last week, they just got rolled at home by Colorado, 34-7.
They weren't even competitive.
Yeah, they're playing really well, that Colorado team. And then the week before, they were out at BYU. They got killed then, too. Week prior, Texas Tech at home, they lost by 6. So those are their last 3, all 3 Big 12 losses. But Brett Brennan, first-year head coach there. This is the first matchup, I think I said this at the top, between West Virginia and Arizona ever, which that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. He's 37-52 overall, I believe it is, which is a surprising number for a Power 5 Power 4 head coach, but it is what it is. Offense, Noah Fifita, he's a quarterback. I think he kind of just came onto the scene in the college football world last year. We all know him, but the thing with him is the interceptions this year. He's got 10 interceptions this year. I think he only had 6 all of last year, if I remember that correctly. And he's thrown a pick in every single game. I think one game he even has 3. So that's the big thing is if you're that West Virginia secondary, you're going to have opportunities. You just got to capitalize, because he's been pretty inconsistent with the ball. He's completed less than 60% of his passes. So when you have more interceptions than touchdown passes and you're more than midway through the season, that's not the best look in the world.
Apparently, unless you're Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Moving on, though, the wide receiver that I think everyone is going to be looking for, everyone's going to be talking about, Ted McMillan. I'm keeping the Tet short because it's easier than to try and make.
I'm glad you did
foolish. He's got 47 catches, 780 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's just a dude. And Neil Brown talked about how they'd be dumb to cover him the same way they've covered everyone else, and glad he said it, because if not, there'd be some outcry from this.
I would make everybody else on the field try to beat you.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to double him. You've got to do anything you possibly can to slow him down, because
he had 300 yards receiving in a game this year.
It's more likely or not that he's just going to get his, and you've just got to kind of let the chips fall where they may after that. But he's going to be a guy to watch, because his size, his athleticism. I mean, Jordan Wesley just raved about him this week. Like, he's a legit top 20 prospect in college football right now, and he's one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the country. So he's a guy. Running backs, 2 of them, both kind of just there. Nothing really stands out. Tight end, they've got a tight end, but we'll note that their starting running back, Quali Conley, he's their second leading receiver behind McMillan. So he's got 25 catches. So that's kind of their theme, it seems like. Find McMillan or just try and use the running backs on offense.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Their running backs, they've struggled to run the ball more than they would like, but they really use them in the passing game. And I think that that's going to be a concern. We all saw what happened last week when that choice route got against Tyra Bradley. I mean, that was a nightmare. So West Virginia's got to be ready for that too, because they've at times struggled with that. They did a pretty good job for the most part, but Pitt got them a few times with Reed. And I'm not sure that he's as dynamic as he is, but at the same time, it's going to be something that West Virginia has to account for.
just breaking it down, I mean, Arizona's like numbers-wise towards the bottom of the Big 12. They're 15th in scoring offense, 13th in total offense, 16th in offensive efficiency. So
That's so shocking to me.
Yeah, especially with the pieces they returned. Everyone assumed that they were going to be good, but that's why it's the preseason. But flipping the page to defense, it's not a great defense. It's not a bad defense. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. I think their record kind of speaks for themselves. One thing I will say, they had a 3-game stretch where they just played pretty all right on defense.
Pretty all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like explain when they're not great, not bad. You know, they're mid.
They're there.
What the kids say, they're mid, Keenan.
They're mid.
But yeah, scoring defense 13th in the league, total defense 10th in the league, about in the middle of the pack in both rushing and passing, and then defensive efficiency they're 6th. They've sacked the quarterback 12 times. Trey Smith's the guy on the D-line. He's got 5.5 tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. That's a pretty high number in my opinion. A couple linebackers, Jacob Manu's one, Tay Brown's the other, and then on the back end, Dalton Johnson and Genesis Smith. I like that name. He has 28 total tackles, 2 picks, and a forced fumble. So they can create turnovers. It's just more a matter of are they going to be able to stop you consistently? So, I mean, special teams, I guess we'll go here. Their kicker, guess what, Keenan? 35 for 35 on touchbacks. Isn't that just so simple and easy?
Music to our ears, right?
Yeah. 14 of 18 on kicks. He's missed 1 kick from under 29. 2 of the other misses have been from 50+. He's got a long of 54. He's made 3 kicks from above 50 this year. So that's kind of a breakdown of Arizona. But I think, as you said, it starts and ends with Fida to McMillan. If you can slow down that connection at least even somewhat, you give yourselves a good chance to win this game. I don't see this Arizona team really just stopping West Virginia on offensive time. I think West Virginia will be able to move the ball considerably, but it's a matter of what this West Virginia defense will give up, because I think they're last as far as Pro Football Focus coverage grade. That's not really what you want as a defense heading into the face of this kind of receiving threat.
And I'll be honest with you, that's really disappointing in a lot of ways. You know, we saw, I mean, in the preseason, you know, I was talking to somebody about this, you know, off the podcast earlier. You know, you look at the DBs they brought in, you know, they've had success at previous stops. They look the part physically, and it's not just all DBs. Linebackers have played a role in this as well. So I don't want to just, you know, point everything to DBs, but, you know, they have at least one bust every game that usually costs them a touchdown. They've not been able to get off the field on 3rd down, and sometimes it's 3rd and long. You know, there's been like 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 12s, 3rd and 8s.
And it's never hard for these teams. It's like they're doing it with ease.
Yeah, and I think that some of that's pass rushing. You know what you mentioned earlier, Avery John. You know, West Virginia got one really, really good rush. Sean Martin got off the ball so quick, and then he basically got held and tackled from behind. And no flag was thrown, but that's another thing. But I think that defensively, you know, the pass coverage, it is what it is. You know, we've beaten a dead horse here. Neil kind of said it this week. The personnel is the personnel. They just got to play better. And it really is simple as that. You know, some of this stuff is correctable. It really is. You know, some of this stuff you kind of got to live with. But, you know, Kansas State kind of took advantage of that. And I think, you know, Iowa State kind of exposed that the week before. And I think you're going to see teams continue to do that until West Virginia is able to switch it up and kind of adjust what they're doing. You can't give quarterbacks that easy of throws. It doesn't matter if you can stop the run if teams can basically have 8 to 15-yard handoffs, which is essentially what that was. You know, it's just, you know, we could make those throws. I mean, the guy's standing right there in front of you. It's not hard to throw to make. So I think that's got to get corrected. And, you know, you got to avoid those 1 or 2 big plays. I feel like teams have been able to tempo West Virginia at times, and for whatever reason, it's led to busts in the back end. You know, you go back and look at it. Penn State did it in week 1. Iowa State did it. Kansas State did it. And there's probably a few other examples of that too. But just off the top of my head, you know, teams get up to the line real quick, run a play, and there's a 60-plus yard pass down the field.
Or
so
you have 3 guys covering a guy in the end zone, and there's a 2nd and 30 completed. But, you know.
Yeah, that too. But I mean, they deserve the coverage grade they have. They've not played well, and I think everyone in that building knows that. But the season is not lost. Things can turn around. We've seen West Virginia defenses in recent years kind of turn around and flip the script a little bit. So I think this is one of those weeks where which one of these teams is going to want it more? You know, these are 2 beat up, I don't want to call them broken, but down teams. There's no doubt both these teams are down. Although I will say this in West Virginia's defense, I know a lot of fans always kind of say, oh, they've quit on them or blah, blah, blah. I was really encouraged by the attitude and the way that the coaches and the players spoke this week. They still understand that there's a lot of season left. All 5 of these games remaining are very winnable games if they can kind of figure out some of their issues. And, talk is cheap. It takes money to buy whiskey. I understand that. But there is something to be said about having the right attitude and leadership. And the one thing I will say under Neil Brown is even with disappointment and some of those, they have shown an ability to bounce back in these type of situations, especially when nobody thinks, they're going to go on the road and win. We saw that at Oklahoma State. Other than me at the last minute, I think most people were expecting that game to not go West Virginia's way. And I think a lot of people feel that way this week. So it's kind of gut check time again for West Virginia. You hear that a lot this year, but unfortunately, that's the road they've played themselves into. Just think back 2 weeks ago. This team was, 3-2. You're thinking everything's going to turn. 2 ranked opponents at home, and they get soundly beat by both. Now you're back to 3-4. A lot of concern. Can this team flip it again? Because you win this game, then you got to go to Cincinnati, and you got a couple other games that you can possibly win. But you fall to 3-5. You're heading into a bye week. You got one more loss the rest of the season. 2 really, but one more to finish 6-6. That's at best. If you lose 2 more games, 6-6, and I don't care any way you slice it. That's not what anybody expected, other than maybe Vegas. But West Virginia has higher aspirations than winning 6 games in year 6 of Neil Brown, and I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, the sky isn't falling, but it certainly feels like it's starting to cave in.
It's rumbling.
Yeah, you can see the clouds in the distance, and your radar saying you have a thunderstorm warning for later tonight. But yeah, it's a spot. No one, I mean, the 2 of us certainly didn't think they would be in this spot. I'm sure this coaching staff didn't think they would be in the spot. Like we really thought this team was going to be better than the way they played. And the schedule excuse is a valid one because they've played some tough teams. But out of those 4 losses, they have 3 of them have been at home.
Yeah,
right?
Like you're gonna play good teams. You got to be good. Yeah.
You want to that's where you want to be. You don't want to just be this team that's just middling all the time. You want to be the team that
You can't use the excuse that you lost to good teams because you're never going to be a good team if you can never beat good teams. And I think that's kind of the crux of a lot of the frustration of the fan base right now. Is yes, everyone understands it's been a hard schedule, but those are winnable games. It's not like you're playing the 1985 Bears or the 2008 New England Patriots. And you're playing teams that can be beaten. UCF had Iowa State on the ropes the other night. In Kansas State got trucked by BYU, and they've almost lost a few. They almost lost to Tulane. These are teams that, yes, they're very good, and I'm not taking anything away from them, but it's the lack of not being competitive in these games. And I understand. I know excuse, whatever you want to say, but the second half of Kansas State, I really do throw out the window. They lost so many pieces that it's really hard to kind of compete with a team like that. But even in the first half, you had opportunities to make that a much closer game, and they just couldn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's been a tough stretch, no doubt. But you're right. Like, especially with the hype that this team was kind of built upon in the summer, is that they were going to be a good team. And so when you have good teams coming into your building, you should at least compete in those games. And Penn State game wasn't really competitive in the second half. The Iowa State game was competitive for midway through the 4th. And then Kansas State, it was over at halftime. And so that's just where we're at. And so, I mean, it's hard to look at the past because no one really wants to talk about it. And it's easy to just say, sky's falling in. But, I mean, yeah, if they lose this week, I don't know where we go from here.
And I'll be honest with you, I've prided myself the last couple of years, really since the latter part of Dana's career. I've been pretty close in season predictions. This has a chance to be my worst by far. I mean, and that's shocking to me because, yes, I understood the schedule they played towards the end of last year. It wasn't the greatest teams. But I thought they had turned the corner in a lot of those areas that had really bothered them in the past. And here we are at 3-4, and, they're a couple plays away. Yeah, you could argue they should be 4-3 or blah, blah, blah. But it's any way you slice it, it's disappointing. And, yes, you're not going to change anybody's mind if you go on the road and beat Arizona. But you know what? The only people's mind that matters is that in the locker room, and they need some positive momentum right now. This is a major game for West Virginia and Neil Brown. They need to find a way to win this game on the road. Neil said that they played well on the road. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Maybe this year to a degree, but in the past, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that at times it's been a real struggle. But, this is an Arizona team that is probably hurting as much, if not more, than you are in terms of expectations. They're not playing well at all. Offensively, they've kind of been a mess at times, which is downright shocking to me. So here's your chance. Go on the road, get to 4-4, go on the bye, and kind of regroup for that.
November. Yep.
Yeah, see what you can do in November.
All right, prediction time, Keenan. I'll go first. I don't think they get it done. I think McMillan has a day. I think Fafita can throw the ball all around the yard, and I'm not sure this secondary is going to stop anyone. I also think that if Garrett doesn't play, it's going to be tough for this offense, and not tough like you won't score, but tough as in converting opportunities when you get into a scoring area. Like scoring 7 instead of 3, I think will come at a premium this weekend, but I just don't think they can keep up. That's the truth of it all. I'm not sure that this defense can slow Arizona down enough, and I'm not sure West Virginia with the backup quarterback can keep up enough. So I'm going to take Arizona. Let's go 31-23.
I am torn on this, and I'm going to take Arizona, but I definitely think it's a winnable game for West Virginia. I look at these two teams. West Virginia is better offensively, which I wouldn't have said coming into the year. Arizona is a little bit better defensively. Both aren't really great in either one, but I think that a lot of it depends on who plays. I think if Garrett does play, which at this point I would guess he doesn't, but that's just me saying that. If he does play, I like West Virginia's chances better, but with all the injuries they have, it makes it tough for me to pick them on the road. So I'm with you. I think Arizona just outlasts them. I hate to quote the message board. I hope I'm wrong here, but that's how I feel right now. It's really hard to take West Virginia after what's unfolded the last 2 weeks. And I understand Iowa State and Kansas State are not Arizona, but that stuff tends to snowball. So let's see if let's see if the talk matters. Let's see if they rally. Let's see if they can win it. But right now, I can't pick them.
Let's get into some hoops talk, shall we? Will that ease our minds?
Hey, it's going to make people happier. We've already seen the pivots going on the message board already.
Yeah, but West Virginia men's basketball, first exhibition under Darian DeVries. They beat Division II Charleston 94-61. Just a good vibe kind of night. I thought that just kind of a couple things quick for me before we go to you is that, this is going to be a fun brand of basketball. I think we were kind of told that, but it actually seemed like it. They're going to shoot some threes, Keenan. They are going to shoot some threes. First half was a lot better from 3 than the second half, but that's what you kind of get with these college teams is that they're going to, if they start shooting a bunch, some are going to go in and some won't, and that's just the way it is. Defensively, I thought they were very active on the defensive end. I know you were the superior opponent, superior team, but I thought they were at least moving well. I thought they were moving, switching well. I thought just they were trying to get loose balls, and that's impressive to see in an exhibition against a Division II where you can kind of sleep it away and know you're going to roll into a win. But it was good to see that they got a lot of guys in. Tucker DeVries did what he does. He led the team in scoring. Javon Small, I thought he was really good with the ball in his hands. I'm excited to see how he kind of continues to grow in his role. But, yeah, they're fun to watch. I'm not sure how that translates exactly to wins, especially because their size. They're not the biggest team in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but they're fun to watch and they're active on defense. And I think that is a refreshing brand of basketball for fans to see.
Yeah, definitely basketball with you. They didn't run a lot of stuff, but it looked like they had purpose with what they were doing. And I think that matters offensively. It's going to be fun to kind of see how they mix and match the pieces. I liked what I saw at Amani Hansberry. I think that he could be a pretty good player there for them if he can hit some of those shots that he's going to get in those pick and pop situations. I really, really, really like what I saw from Jonathan Powell, the freshman. I think that he has the look of a big time player. He's about 6'6". He's long, can shoot the ball well. I'm excited to see how he continues to develop over the course of this year and, future years of his career. I think that they got kind of a steal on him. Some of the other guys, Toby O'Connie and Sincere Harris, really get after people defensively. Really like how O'Connie can basically defend anybody on the floor. It's really fun to watch him go after people. One concern I had, I like what they did offensively. Defensively, I'm worried about rebounding a little bit. Some of those loose balls getting tipped out, they've got to be able to limit people to one shot. That's kind of what DeVries has done over his career. You try to limit people to one shot, get out in transition and score. It's fun when they get out and run. They definitely look good in that. You can tell it's something they do. Tucker DeVries, in my opinion, is the best player on the floor. At least he was the other night. He's not going to wow you necessarily with his athleticism, but he's athletic enough and really understands where to be, his positioning, everything like that. He's a very good basketball player, very smart basketball player. So excited to see him. His team was picked 13th, and we'll get into this. We're going to have a preview next week of the season, but I firmly believe that this team is better than 13th. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean 12th? Does that mean 10th? I don't know. But I think that this team's going to surprise some people because anymore, those preseason projections are basically, what did you return? Oh, they didn't return much. Did they bring a couple transfers in? Okay, maybe we'll slot them here. So we'll see how it goes. But I definitely think if you went to that game, you were entertained and a lot of reason to be excited for the future of the basketball program. It might be a little rocky this year. They got a tough schedule, but you can see what DeVries is trying to do and what it's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, I think you can certainly see the foundation. You can see what he's trying to kind of build, the players he's trying to obtain and play and have on his roster. And I think that that's going to translate over time to Big 12 rosters. I think you have to have an emphasis on defense in this league, but you also have to have an emphasis on length on the outside, especially those wing players. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing. It can't be done overnight. I think that if there was an expectation level for this team to compete this year at a high level, that was kind of wrong. Let's just say that, because you want to win, yes, but you also want this to be a long-term solution, not a short-term fix. And so I think with the portal era, everyone's like, oh, go. But I think DeVries was very calculated. I think we've mentioned that before, and how he built this roster, very calculated in his recruiting decisions. And let's be real, Keenan, they're recruiting, the guys they're going after and recruiting are talented guys, and they're not just from a certain area. And I think that's refreshing to see as well, because there was a more centralized approach with the previous regime in recruiting, I would say. And it's different now. And I think that's also something to keep in mind, is it's going to be different. And while the Bob Huggins era for West Virginia basketball really was a good era, this is now the Darian DeVries era. And so it's the start of something new. And so I think you have to embrace the new with that.
Yeah, I like what they've done. And you can see the plan. They're going to get some high-level high school guys, mix in with transfers. But if you can keep those high school guys developing your program, you got a solid core to build on every year. And I think that's what they want to do. They talk about building programs a lot. All the assistants have. DeVries has talked about it. Building programs and connectivity. And those are the two kind of buzzwords that he constantly uses. And I think that you're seeing that play out, and you'll continue to see that play out. I was impressed personally with what he was able to go out and get in the first year. This team's going to be more than competitive, I think. It's not necessarily going to be, it's a first year. I don't know if I'm not projecting tournament or anything crazy right now, but I think that they're going to be competitive and people are going to have fun watching it. You'll see the seeds start to be sown for what this thing's going to be over the long haul.
100%. So with that, we're going to wrap up here. We will have a post-game podcast coming to you either late Saturday night or early Sunday morning. Enjoy I don't know which weekend's counted as Halloween weekend, but I know here where I'm at, this weekend is a Halloween weekend. So if that is where you are at too, Keenan, enjoy Halloween weekend. Or if you are listening,
my Halloweens are just trick-or-treating with the kids now, so I don't get to do none of the fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, hey, best dad moment ever. I continue. Yep. I'm gonna have somehow a dad moment drop every episode. But in all seriousness, Mountaineers play at 7:00 on Fox Sports 1, I believe, on Saturday. So Mountaineers will play the Wildcats for the first time ever, and we will have all the information, all of your game day essentials going up today, Thursday, tomorrow, Friday, and then Saturday on game day. So with that, I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by Keenan Cummings. If you made it this far, we do appreciate you listening, and this is the WVSports.com podcast.